economics as well as the real estate market. We're going to give you a perspective from two locals been on the ground for north of 30 years each. We're going to straight talk. We're not necessarily going to agree on everything, but at the end of the day, hopefully you're going to, you'll have some opinions on stuff. We're not going to tell you what to think, but we will tell you our thoughts so you can decide what makes the most sense and what doesn't. The way we're going to do it is we're going to go through 5 articles. We handpicked them. We're going to kick them back and forth. We're going to decide, is it a buy, is it a sell, or is it a hold? All that being said, let me go ahead and turn it over. Oh, by the way, my name is Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I also have a company called Miami Condo Investing Club. Check out my website, miamicondo.club. And my co-host on this podcast, and remember, every Friday, 4 p.m. South Florida time, is Daniel Hernandez. He is a veteran real estate professional with Compass. He does single family as well as condominiums. How's that for an intro, Daniel?
That is a great intro. You are too kind to me, Peter. I'm not that old. I don't know if I could be qualified as a veteran, but I'll take it.
Experienced, seasoned.
Experience, sure. But I don't want to parrot too much off of what you got to say. We have a lot to talk about today, and I just want to jump into it. The format, as Peter said, we got 7 minutes to talk about each one of these topics. If we go into overtime, that's okay. We've allocated time for that. But to jump in with the first topic, Peter, your office is in this area, right on the bay. Tell me a little bit about what you see going on in the Central Business District, and to sort of map it out for everybody watching. If the Central Business District in Miami, we have everybody talks about Brickell, the Wall Street to the south. Well, Brickell is south of the Miami River, and then once you go north of the Miami River, you have downtown, and that carries you all the way till, well, they're putting up that signature bridge project, which is that first Miami Beach exit that takes you alongside the cruises. And in there is what, the Downtown Development Authority and the Central Business District. The brand name that they're putting on this now is Miami World Center. And there's been a ton of construction over the last 10 years, and there continues to be a lot of construction. But Peter's really well versed in all of that because that's where he hangs his hat. So Peter, what do you see going on in there?
Well, Daniel, there was some big news made within the last few weeks or so. I don't know if you can pull up the article or so, because this is something that has to do with the courts. And my experience is anytime it has to do with the courts, read directly from the article and refer everything based on the article. And then we can talk outside of the article, simply because I don't want to get hit with a cease and desist and or any kind of lawsuit. So I don't know if you can pull up that article.
Yeah, I'll pull it up for you right now.
Okay, so while you do that, why don't you let me kind of give you a perspective? Like Daniel said, the Central Business District, that's primarily going to be where all the government entities are. When you go south of the river, so you got the Miami River basically separating Brickell Avenue area to the south, and you got Central Business District to the north. All the government stuff is going to be north of the river. All of the professional service stuff is going to be south of the river. Generally speaking, it's all part of this greater downtown Miami area. Give you an idea, there's 204 condo projects, about 59,000 units. Now, what we're seeing is the biggest amount of new construction going on in the Central Business District. It'll be about a 16-block stretch. By the way, the eastern boundary is the Bay. The western boundary is going to be Interstate 95. So in this 16-block stretch where you have Bayside, you have Museum Park, you have the Kaseya Center, which at one time was called the American Airlines Arena, where the Miami Heat operates. This is where a lot of stuff's going up. We got 4,800 units and 12 new condo projects going up in 16 blocks.
Wow.
Prior to this boom in the last 5 years, there were about 9,000 units, 9,200 units or so ballpark. So we're going to add 50% to our overall supply. Now, this is only condos. This excludes all of the rentals, and most of the stuff going up in and around there is going to be rental related. It'll be real estate investment trust type of stuff. It'll be private corporate landlords, if you will. But what caught our attention is this article. And this article is coming from the Real Deal. So anybody out there is involved, do not send us a cease and desist. Do not send us any lawsuit. We're going to point directly to the Real Deal. Let me just read that headline real quick. It says financial sabotage in quotes coming from the Real Deal. Dan Kazi, Legacies Miami World Center developer. It doesn't say developer, but I'm going to fill that word in there in case you don't know Dan Kazi. Dan Kazi's Legacy Miami World Center tied up in foreclosure and a countersuit. What is a foreclosure? A foreclosure is a situation where a creditor basically moves on and or a mechanic, construction, they move on a project for non-payment. That's basically what it is. Basically, it's paperwork. Sometimes it's used for negotiating strategies, tactics, But basically, this one project called Legacy that's going up right there on what is that Northeast First. It's going on Northeast First, right across from the sister project, which is called Paramount Miami World Center, which Dan Codzi built. Just got hit with a foreclosure. I was by that site this week. We had one of our meetups for the Miami Condo Investing Club, and we were looking at it. Nothing's being done. You got a tower standing probably 12 stories tall. You got one crane on. I'm not sure if the other crane was taken off. It kind of looked like that, but don't hold me to it. I saw the base of the crane, but the top of it, the T part of the T crane was gone. But nothing's going on. So the question becomes, is this the start? Is this the beginning of something that's going to be going on in this central business district? Again, 12 condo projects, including this Legacy, adding 4,800 units within 16 block stretch from north to south. So basically, you walk a mile, you're going to get hit with all of these units. And I will tell you, there's roughly about 1.5 people per unit times 4,800. That gives you some context as to what kind of supply we're talking about. And it's in addition to all the rental projects going up. And our friend Adam Newman, not our friend, but, speaking just in large terms, the gentleman from WeWork who built that company up and it all kind of went sideways. He's now resurfaced. He's down here in South Florida and he's become a condo developer. So he bought a pair of projects. One of them it's called Flow House. One of them he's running as a rental. That's on the east side. On the west side, the sister project, and they abut each other. That's going to be a condo conversion called Flow House Condo. So he's even down there. Everybody's playing in this, what's supposed to be Miami World Center, which, by the way, Daniel, I don't know if you remember this. Miami World Center was first announced about 2004, 2005. They had a slick little video every time you went into the sales office at the time. They were trying to put it together. It was going to be a retail. They used the theme music, the opening music from the Miami Vice TV show to show you what it was going to be like, because they were trying to replace what used to stand there. What was there before? You had Camille's house. Yeah, but you had the Camille's house over there. You had Bicentennial Park, which became Museum Park. That was basically a no-go area because all the homeless.
Well, it was the MAM, right? The Modern Art Museum, the Miami Art Museum, right?
No, it was basically it was the old track for the Miami Grand Prix. Ralph Sanchez, the guy who started it, he used to run the Grand Prix through there. They used to do racing. That ultimately is what prompted them to build the Motor Speedway down in Homestead. But basically, it was a no-go zone. It was all on the waterfront. Nobody could go there. Primarily, it was homeless. It was hookers. It was drugs, all that type of stuff. So they replaced all this. And one of the paramount aspects cornerstones was going to be this Miami World Center. 20 years ago, it's finally coming through to fruition. And everybody's going crazy putting stuff up. And apparently, one of the projects, according to The Real Deal, not me, The Real Deal, according to the headline, financial sabotage, Dan Codzi's Legacy Miami World Center, tied up in foreclosure and countersuit, according to The Real Deal. Apparently, one of the 12 is now faced with some issues.
So, Peter, I got a question for you. You have so much data about World Center, or about all condos. Peter, you are very numbers oriented. And so these condos that are going up in this district, one of them is very famously the Waldorf Astoria. It's going to be the tallest residential tower, I think, south of New York.
That's what they say. Everybody's the biggest. Everybody's the tallest.
It's the last piece of waterfront real estate.
Yeah. If you don't buy it, there's never going to be another. Blah 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 blah. Please continue.
What's the price blend in World Center? Because I see a lot of these buildings, and a lot of them sold out like hotcakes during the pandemic, and there were a lot of these BTR, short-term rental-friendly projects. 600 World Center, 500 World Center, I think is one of them called. PMG's got one, 11 West, and those are all these short-term rental projects that are Airbnb friendly, but they come in at a much lower price point, where you have 2-3 blocks away, you have 10 Museum and Waldorf Astoria that are $2,000 a square foot products. So what's the median? What's the blend here? Is this a real reflection of Miami, or is it low end and high end with no middle?
Well, here's the interesting part. If you pull the data, or if you shop the sales office, pre-construction is going to start about $1,200 a foot, generally speaking. Now, this Adam Newman, who's got the tower on the west side, he's trying to do a condo conversion. I looked last week because we were doing a tour, one of our tours, so I had to do the research. And looking through the tour, he had not yet filed the condo declaration, which is necessary in order to convert a rental into a condo. Had not yet filed that, but he was trying to undercut the market, from what I'm told, coming in at just north of $900 a foot, when the rest of the new product was going to be going for $1,200 a foot. Now, you do have, anecdotally, you have other projects where they're really pushing the envelope. You mentioned Waldorf Astoria. I want to say there was a story story that came out about a year ago. They're looking for 120 million for a penthouse. Just to give you context as to what's going on. But generally speaking, to buy in new construction, 1,200 a foot would be it'd be a good starting point. And if you look at the resale market, the average price on the resale market is about 1,012 a square foot. Now, here's the kicker. There's something called the 1% rule. Whatever the rent is represents 1% of the value. $1,000 a month rent means it's a $100,000 property. $10,000 a month rent means $1 million property.
$1.2 million a month for the $120 million penthouse. Anybody doing the back of the napkin math?
There you go. But what's sort of interesting to me is in this central business district, the average ask is 1.6 million a door. The median rent they're getting, according to the realtors, and rental data is bad because REITs and private landlords, they don't share their information because they don't want to pay a commission. And the way people get rental data is either through a survey by calling the sales office or the leasing office and or relying on the MLS. So according to the MLS, the median rent is $3,500 a month, and the ask is 1.6. So we have a big disconnect. So the proposition is if you buy a condo for 1,012 a square foot, that's a resale. If you spend that $1.6 million a door, you're going to get back $3,500 a month in rent. So, and that's really where the push pull is. And those are some of the issues that are sort of coming to a head right now, given mortgage rates, given what's happening with insurance, and then given the fact that maintenance fees are they're on the rise. Some of it's necessary in new buildings, but most of it is I'd say padding, if you will, by whatever entity.
In this district, and we always talk about the housing crisis and the lack of affordable housing. How many of these units do you think are intended for end users versus owner investors?
Yeah. So I was talking to Miami Herald about this this week. So so first and foremost, what's an investor and what's a user? So the way we defined it is a homestead declaration. In the state of Florida, if you are a resident, you get to claim something called a homestead. You file that, you notify the state, this is my homestead. You get added legal protections, but you also get to lock in your tax exposure in terms of what they're going to charge you for annually. And keep in mind, 2% property tax, of which a third's going to the county, a third goes to the city, and a third goes to the school board. So all of the coffers of the governmental agencies, for the most part, they're being filled by property taxes. So that's why a homestead is really good. So we did a study, and this is probably 10 years ago or so now. We looked at all of greater downtown Miami. We basically found about 1 out of every 3 units was homesteaded, meaning the other 2 out of
30%.
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. Now this was before this boom we had on right now with the Californians and the New Yorkers who all came down during the pandemic because they wanted to be in the crypto capital of the United States. They wanted to twerk on a police car, so they all came down here and they bid it up. I don't know how many are declaring homestead, how many are not, but I think it's if you wanted to ballpark it conservatively, I'd say 1 out of every 2 units is homesteaded. Or 1 out of 2 units is an investor, meaning non-homesteaded, because there's nothing that requires you to file paperwork that says that you are an investor. So we looked at it as, okay, if they file homestead, they live here. If they don't, they're an investor, even if it's a second home that they don't intend to rent.
Well, the reason why I ask is because the 1% rule you can throw out the door. If it's a homesteaded property, they like it, they want to live in it. It's a utility, it's your primary residence, and you know what? In Miami, we're seeing that people are spending upwards of 40-50% of their income on housing, and it's not because they necessarily want to. Nobody wants to spend that much money on housing, but it's because they have to. That's where they work. They don't want to commute an hour from Homestead or somewhere further out west or all the way up in Tamarack. So if it just costs what it costs, and investors are buoying the market.
Or we're booing the market.
We're booing the market.
Past tense.
But these pre-construction projects that were rental friendly, these condominium projects. Well, let me just make something clear. There are all these condo projects. You can buy as an investor and rent it out.
Yeah, traditionally
on
twice
a 6-month minimum basis, right?
Yeah.
So twice a year, 6-month minimum. Sometimes it's a little more austere. Sometimes it's once a year, and it has to be 12-month minimum. It all depends on the condo bylaws and the governing documents of that given building. But an STR, short-term rental, or BTR, build to rent, those are Airbnb specific buildings. They are for an investor to go in and say, I'm going to put this on Airbnb. I want to get a daily rate for this because the HOA, the governing bylaws, allow them to rent it daily. And effectively, it's a hotel. And every given unit can be a different little operating company. So if you're an end user in one of those buildings, it's like you're living in a hotel.
It is. It is. Well, yeah, but here's an interesting point. In running the numbers, we did a ranking which buildings have the highest concentration of units for sale and which ones have the lowest. And we use, and everybody has different numbers. We use 10%. We say every building ought to have 10% of its units available always. So 1 out of 10 should always be
That's
available.
healthy liquidity.
Yeah, that's just a regular market. So we took a look at, okay, which were the best, which, by the way, the best one with the lowest percentage is 900 Biscayne Bay, coming in about 2% of the units for sale. So that means if you go into that project and you're a listing agent, dude, you're going to sell that thing, most likely because everybody wants to be in there. And more importantly, nobody wants to sell. We also took a look at what was the worst. And this is where it ties into your short-term rental. The second highest percentage of units for sale is in a short-term rental project called Nativo/Gale Residences. Number one, by the way, if you're asking, the Aston Martin. 1 out of every 4 units in the Aston Martin is currently
right?
on the market.
I saw that. I saw 25%. Yep. So here, and we got to jump to the next topic, but I want to ask you one more question about this. So for Fannie Mae, for a Fannie Mae mortgage, I don't know what the cutoff is, and maybe you know, but if a certain amount of units are
not homesteaded,
it's
not a primary residence. Continue. Yep.
They won't loan on a transaction. They won't lend money to transact in that building. So it's a very careful dance that these HOAs have to play in, because yes, every building wants to have a healthy number of transactions, because if there's a healthy number of transactions, then people want to live in it. They know that they can sell their unit if they need to. But if you don't have enough units being lived in, homesteaded, Fannie Mae says you're blacklisted.
And then you got to go to private money, and private money means that there's more risk involved. Therefore, they need to get some they need to be incentivized to get off the couch and do the loan. So this is where you get jammed up.
So we're talking about renters. Well, let's buy, sell, hold on the future of the Central Business District. So
before you make your decision, 25 months of supply of condos in the Central Business District, 6 months is equilibrium. Although if you listen to Ron Sheffield from EWM, who I've known a long time, he just came out in a story and said that 9 months of supply is suddenly the new equilibrium. So, and he's a sell-side guy. So you should just sort of give you perspective. I'm a sell. I walk that area with my core. I've looked at the numbers. I'm a hard sell. And hands out means a sell. Hands in, I'm buying. I am dumping this market.
I gotta agree with you. The numbers are too aggressive in that direction. If you have a condo, if you're an owner investor, if you're living in it and you're having a great time and you're paying your HOA and
you got your 2% interest rate,
and you like where you live and you're locked into a low rate, then yeah, good for you. But if you bought this, you're not making Peter's 1%. Certainly not in this rental market. I think it's time for you to sell. I'm selling. All right, Peter. So another article that came up was that millionaires, so people making a lot of money, are renting, and this is a nationwide phenomenon, but it's happening. One of the big markets it's happening in is down here in South Florida, and then Houston, Texas actually was another large market for this. But folks who are high income earners are opting to rent instead of buy. And that's great. Good for them. You have money. You can do whatever you want with it. You can buy, you can rent. But in certain markets like Miami and the Bay Area in particular, there aren't enough high-end rentals for these folks. And guys, we're talking about, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 plus a month rentals. And these are folks who could put down a few $1 million for a down payment, but they're making so much money in this crazy economy because the economy is so amazing, or the stock market is doing so well. The stock market and the economy are not correlated, but the stock market's doing so well. These folks are making so much money by other means. They don't want to lock in $2 million at what, 6.5% interest rate, or if you're getting an ARM, 6% ARM for the next 30 some odd years. So where are these folks renting? Well, I think I've explained why they're renting, but is Miami going to deliver high-end product for these New York renters? The developers you talk to, are they looking at this data and saying, well, maybe I should build some more ultra luxury product geared towards high-income renters? It seems like a very a risky game of Parcheesi.
You know, generally speaking, the way it used to work, and I've been called, old and it's passed me by and all that. So the way it used to work is on the Barrier Island. So anybody doesn't know the topography of Miami, basically you got the Atlantic Ocean, you got the Barrier Island, much of it man-made. You got a bay with some islands scattered in there, and then you're going to have the mainland. So generally speaking, the way it used to work is when you were on that Barrier Island, it was primarily a second home. This is where developers would build something that was expansive. This is something that was a lot of wasted space if you're an investor. Investors want tight. They don't want hallways in a unit. They don't want amenity. They don't want anything in an investor because every square foot there's
Right.
a spread in terms of what am I making for now when you get into a big unit, this is for that person because they earned it, they deserve it. So traditionally it was always Barrier Island, big expansive units, 9 stories and 8 units type of thing. And the mainland was always high density. This is where you put in 400 units, 500 units. You put up 17, 1800 units in a project, and they were smaller. They didn't have the same thing. But what we've seen and what we saw more recently is that there's this push towards larger units. Why? Because I think some of it has to do with the fact that the developers don't think based on the numbers the way they were because of construction costs and profit requirements and branding. Remember, you got to pay to bring in a brand there, have them hang their flag there. The only way they could make the numbers work was to go after let's call them the fat cat type of buyer. And to get the fat cat type of buyer, they're going to want something much more expansive. So we saw this shift as the Great Recession of tight, high density units on the mainland to suddenly expansive type of units that have the branding in order and in hopes of attracting some of these would-be buyers because that's the only way you can kind of make these numbers work. And I think that's where we've gotten, but I think we've overshot. And the fact that the reason I think we overshot is again, let's go back to our first story, Central Business District. You have some expansive units there that aren't offering what you need, which is i.e. water. These buildings, many of them, they're all inland. They're a few blocks. They're closer to the Overtown metro rail station and Brightline than they are to the bay in some circumstances. And I think they kind of overshot it. I think they got too aggressive. I think there was a lot of hoopla. There were a lot of people queuing up, during the pandemic. They all wanted to come down here. And then the world changed. Part of it, AI and tech workers getting called back into Silicon Valley and
Sure.
or getting eliminated because of AI as it pertains to coding. And then you had the JP Morgans of the world, the Jamie Dimons, calling everybody back and saying, listen, you're not working from home in Miami. Get your ass up here to New York City. So I think all of these things have sort of had a factor. But developers, they always have to anticipate because remember, a condo project, it's going to take you 7 years. You buy the dirt, you sit down with the city, you get the approval, you hire the pretty people, you put on the parties with the booze and the food, you sell it, then it takes 3 years to construct it. So they have to anticipate. And I would bet the next time we do a building boom, it's going to be tight, high density units, and they'll incorporate a lot of this, the short term rentals. But also too, Daniel, before I turn it over to you, one of the reasons I think that these celebrities are opting to rent rather than purchase, I think they have smart advisors around them, and they're telling them the difference between owning and renting right now favors the renter. And landlords are basically being forced to subsidize tenants, at least from what I'm seeing condo wise
Well,
coastal.
of course they're having to subsidize them, and you look at the rise in these HOAs, right? Primarily because of the rise in insurance, it de-risks you an immense amount if you're not owning in one of these buildings and you're renting. It doesn't matter if you're worth $1 million or $10 million. If you are a renter, you do not pay HOA, and that's just a headache some people don't want to have to deal with. And
It's
that
true.
and folks, this is condos. With a house you have with a single family home, it has its own costs. It has its own maintenance costs. You got to buy a new HVAC. You got to get the swimming pool guy, the lawn guy, and these are all costs that normally go into an HOA in a building. And this is something that you have to sort of own by yourself in a single family home. With a condominium building, this is leadership by a board, whether you like the board or you don't like the board. Some buildings are very well managed, and other buildings are less so. I mean, I need to put out props to a particular building that I went to go see with a client a few weeks ago, and you can tell even by visiting a building a few times that it's just well managed. It works. The valet works. The pool and the amenity areas are clean. It doesn't smell like barbecue from Saturday afternoon.
Or
There
weed.
isn't. Yeah, or pot. There's not dog crap everywhere. You know,
Yeah,
it's those little things that the management company does, because that's something the management company thoughtfully does. Oh, and the other thing is, look at the tenure. Next time you go see a building, ask the valet guy how long he's been working there. Ask the concierge, the guy at the front desk or the woman at the front desk, hey, how long you been working here?
great point.
And if you have a building with employees that have tenure, and there's two buildings in mind that I'm thinking of, and I'm going to say them because I think they're good buildings and I think they deserve to be known about. One is 10 Museum Park, next to 1000 Museum, right next to your office, and the
Yep.
other one, which is a building that I love, not just because Ugo built it, but Bristol Tower. Bristol Tower, the employees at Bristol Tower, many of them have been there for years. They know everybody's names. Granted, it's a smaller, it's a more boutiquey building. I would imagine in Flatiron, which has 600 something units, it's much more difficult for everybody to learn everybody's names. I mean, it's hard enough for a kindergarten teacher to learn all the kids in the class's names. But that sort of service, and that's not something that is very easy for folks like Peter and I to quantify unless we spend time in the field with our clients, which we do, and that's how we know and amass this information. And that's part of our value as realtors, right? Well, I'm a realtor. Peter's not. He was gonna tell me to tell everybody that. But it's the unspoken soft benefits of the HOA outside of the 1% rule and the numbers, and this line goes for 10% more than this line, yada yada. And folks coming in from out of state and out of country, they get woo-hawed by the view and the cold plunge and the pickleball court, and they don't recognize that what affects your quality of life in a building on a day-to-day is how it's managed by the people who work there.
I couldn't agree more. I think you're nailing it right there. I mean, a lot of it is the smoke and mirrors. It's set up for the smoke and mirrors for you, so you fall in love with it, and you almost overlook the really important parts. I mean, for instance, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Who gives a shit about that? Nobody cares about that. They care about what it smells like when you walk into the lobby. I'm going to be
Not like
starting a
shit, hopefully.
podcast. Yeah, I'm going to be starting a podcast with a guy who's a chief building engineer. He's run towers,
A chief
talking
building
about,
engineer, not a cheap building engineer.
well, a little bit of both probably, because they don't necessarily want to pay them, but basically in talking to him about everything that's going on, all of the money is allocated towards the appearance. None of it's going towards the back end. And then the people running it, they're not necessarily qualified. They don't have the same training. If you're coming down here from New York and it's a union shop running it, the people are going to know what the hell they're doing. Here, if you
It's a
show up and
free
and
for
the number
all.
one person resigns, they'll give you the shirt that says you're now the chief building engineer. So completely different standards according to him. But what's going on? So a lot of it comes down to, you really got to do your due diligence and do not get caught up in the first impression. First impression is critical, but I would tell you, it'll help you on the resell. But if you're going to be living there, you need to know all about all the other stuff. And a good way to know a real tell is look at the employees, like Daniel says. That's going to tell you if it's a great building or if it's got some problems. If there's big turnover, there's issues internally. And if people have been there a while, this is probably something you want to take a look at.
So why are millionaires renting instead of owning? Are we buying that story? Are we buying?
Yes, yeah,
I can't
100%.
I can't argue with my clients who want to rent instead of own. Some people
Yep.
want to own, the American dream. I want to own where I live. I want to own my domicile. But if they say financially this is a better decision for me, can't argue with them.
No, not at all. Especially not at this point. Especially if we've already pulled forward all the gains we should have had because of the rapid surge in sales that we had during the shortly after the pandemic.
So speaking of folks renting, wealthy folks renting, many of them are from where, Peter?
New York.
So New Yorkers, Californians, and folks from the Midwest, Americans are moving in here and moving to Miami in droves. And a lot of people, when I say this, they'll say, no, like that's totally overblown. It's just marketing hoopla. But the statistic that I like to point out over and over is something that came out of about 6 months ago, and it was the 2024 data for condo buyers who are foreign. So in 2024, that number has gone down from its peak in 2018 of 50% down to 10%. Yet we still are seeing transactions abound, and in the higher pricing tier, those transactions are even more expensive than they were last year. And I'm talking 5, 6, 7+ million dollars. I mean, that market, it's hot. And so if there are transactions happening in that price bracket and they're not foreign, well, then it's binary. They're either foreign or they're domestic. And so those transactions those transactions are happening, and those transactions are being brought on by domestic buyers, many of whom are working for financial institutions, high paid, and they're moving here. And I know we've seen the headlines of Jamie Dimon pulling people from JP Morgan back to New York. And there's all of these big operations, the Goldman Sachs, the Citibanks of the world. But then there are these alternative asset managers, hedge funds, and smaller boutique investment banks who actually have opened up shop here. And many of them haven't opened up in Brickell. They've opened up where their executives want to live. And you know where their executives want to live, Peter? Miami Beach. They want to live in Miami Beach. They want to live on North Bay Road because their families have been vacationing down here. And I'm generalizing, right? But their families have been vacationing here for decades. And decades ago, the Brickell we know today didn't exist. Brickell was nothing. What was the winter home for many of these New Yorkers? It was Miami Beach. So now they've come down. They're older executives who make a lot of money, and they're like, okay, I've made the money. I want to live on Miami Beach. Well, traffic has gotten so bad that hedge fund manager, he lives in Miami Beach. He's not going to commute 45 minutes into Brickell or into the Central Business District. So all of these high-end office buildings are opening up on the beach. Barry Steinlich has one. Starwood Capital has one on 23rd and Collins. Ravani, the Black Lion guy, the guy with the funny haircut. I mean, funny. Some people like it. It's fine. He's got a property on Michigan, and I think he was on talks to buy one on Washington. That ground lease. I don't think it went through, but there's a lot of clout behind creating a high-end office market for Miami Beach to service these smaller, albeit still very wealthy, high finance folks who want to live on the beach, and their employees live on the beach, and they want to keep their $1 million a year employees happy. They don't want them to commute. They want them in the office. Remember, because we are returning to office, RTO, we're returning to office. But the question is the office going to be in South Miami? Is it going to be in Coconut Grove? Is it going to be in Coral Gables, Brickell, or Miami Beach? And so for maximizing employee time in office and minimizing their time in a car or in our non-existent public transit, because there is none for all intents and purposes, Miami Beach is really hot for this. And we're seeing office leases in the $150, $160, $70 a square foot range. I mean, this isn't anywhere where we were, not even close to where we were 5 or 6 years ago, pre-COVID. What do you think about condominium development with that hat on? Thinking about New Yorkers coming down here, and is the product different for New Yorkers who want to come here than for the foreign buyer of yore from 10, 15, 20 years ago from the last cycle who is coming here? Are developers having to build a different product for this new type of buyer?
That's a great question. I think the answer is yes. I also think just to sort of talk about the office space. Remember, before I'm dating myself here, but before the internet crash, the boom and the crash, Lincoln Road was going to be Silicon Beach. The area was trying to bring in all these tech companies and from Latin America and all this stuff. And Lennar, the commercial entity at the time of Lennar, they built an office tower right there on Washington and about 16th, 15th, 17th, whatever it is, just to the south of Lincoln Road on Washington.
It was the Lennar offices, yeah.
Yeah. And then the internet boom ended, and they were stuck with this office building. So all of a sudden, you had to have they moved all their L&R employees out in Kendallandia. They put them all on the beach because they couldn't occupy the space. So people have tried to build office space on the beach before. I think what happens is a lot of time you parachute in from out of town, especially if you're coming from New York. You think you know everything about everything. You don't necessarily understand the local topography. You don't understand the local style. What kind of happens. And I think these people make bad decisions. It's not to say that there isn't a demand, but I've seen it over and over and over. And as for the New Yorkers coming, dude, they've been coming for 100+ years. Jeff Bezos has moved to Miami, Ken Griffin, they all moved here. The only thing they're doing is what their predecessors did. They get old, they need to retire, and they come down here for the warm weather or no taxes. So I always have this argument with people, and I'm not big in an argument with you, Dan, but I'm saying this is just a natural evolution. You grow up, you move to New York, you make your money, and then you visit Miami,
But
and then you retire down here. Now, if Jeff Bezos actually moves the Amazon headquarters here, all day long.
But that's what's happening. Jeff Bezos is moving here. He's not moving the Amazon headquarters here. But
remember, he had a chance. They were shopping around for an East Coast headquarters.
They were shopping.
The Tri-County area got together.
Right.
Palm Beach, Broward, they all got together. They worked in unison. One of the few times, other than Tri-Rail, they worked in unison. And they got shot down. Long Island City or something was chosen instead of Miami.
I think Alexandria, Virginia, they were supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. So I always hear about these guys moving down. Dude, they're coming down to retire. They want the tax breaks, and
they are. But what about the firms that are bringing their employees down here?
No. That stuff's legit. That stuff's 100% legit. But even like Barry Sternlicht, I mean, he's been running for so long. He wants something to keep busy. He's probably sick of his wife or whatever. He needs a reason to get out of the house.
Real salaries, where they're paying high salaries to specialized jobs, and those are the jobs of the people who are renting and buying at 42 Pine Tree. That building that went up just by my grandparents' house. That my grandfather.
I'm not disagreeing whatsoever. I'm just saying I've seen this before. I've seen this. It's always it's got a different. It's kind of like what do they call it? A pressure cooker or a crock pot or whatever. It's the same damn product. They just put a different name on it. They add a little bit of. It's always the same thing. I mean, after a while, there used to be an analyst down here, a guy called Mike Cannon. Mike Cannon. He would give a presentation where you were in a cycle, and he'd pull out old newspaper clips from like 10, 20 years ago. He'd show you the headline, and he'd ask you, what year do you think this? It was always the same headline. It was always the same movement. We're very, we do stuff the same way each and every time. There's a different twist. This time it was the crypto bros. Before it was, privatization of Latin America. Then it was the internet bubble.
No,
so it all kind of goes on and on.
The crypto thing was a blip. And
not according to our mayor, Manny or Francis Suarez, who just got himself an extra year.
Thing, there's more fraud and famine in crypto here in Miami than I think fame. Really,
I'm just saying the theme. I'm saying that was the theme. That was the fad. Just like there's been previous fads, and when you had that fad, you always have the same sort of reaction. And the other part about building office, the office space, before we kind of get into the New Yorkers. Well, I mean, listen, Stephen Ross, New Yorker, who owns the Miami Dolphins. He took a shot at building the Brickell City Center office building, one Brickell City Center,
and he bailed.
So Swire turned around and sold it to a condo developer. Then they turned around and they sold their mall to get the hell out of that as well, so they can liquidate. And we're still waiting. By the way, we are in Q3. Ken Griffin, which we call Ken Billions.
I knew it.
He is supposed to be breaking ground this quarter on his $1 billion office tower. So Stephen Ross, who was supposed to build the office tower right at 8th Street or Cayocho and Brickell. And by the way, if you were to take that intersection and go due west, even though you can, it's one way, you'd end up at Alligator Alcatraz. So that's just a little bit whatever. So that office building was supposed to go up, and now Ken Griffin or Ken Billions, he's supposed to go forward. So watch those two. One tapped out, sold it to condo developers. Let's see if Ken Billions actually puts it up in terms of the office space. Now in terms of the different type of product, I'd agree with you 100% that they have to do things differently. We mentioned bigger units now, more of a domestic buyer rather than
not a lot of maids' quarters.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah. You don't have the maids' quarters whatsoever. But you mentioned 10 Museum. 10 Museum, the condo. What is it called? 10 Museum Park. Is that the official name?
Yeah, 10 Museum Park.
Yeah, so I don't know if you went in any units that face north or south, not the ones on the end that face east west, but if you go into north south ones, those were built New York style to the point where your kitchen is kind of like an island, and then if you look maybe 10 feet away, you're going to have a bathroom and you're going to have your shower, which is
It's
basically
very loft.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
very
yeah.
New York
No,
loft. You got the glass. It's New York loft with like a Miami twist because
correct,
all
correct.
the showers basically look out. It's like you're a voyeur,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, no,
you're
100%. But that was an example when they brought that to market. That's what they were after. They were going after the New York crowd. That was when they had this whole movement towards lofts. It was all for that New Yorker. So we got away from that. We got into the big expansive units, and now they're adjusting again on the fly because again, there's a timeline. You have to front load everything before you actually get it built. So
right.
yeah, I think they are changing it based on more of a domestic crowd rather than a foreign crowd, like you said, no maids quarters.
No maids quarters anymore. But it's actually crazy because you go into some of these older buildings, and I'm talking vintage like 30, 40 years. Grove Isle. Grove Isle
Yep,
is a perfect
yep, yep.
example. There was a whole floor in Grove Isle 1. So the southernmost Grove Isle A, Grove Isle 1, the southernmost one where you come in right past the security gate, and they had nanny apartments on the first floor. So if you didn't have a unit that was big enough for a maid's quarters and maybe you just had a two-bedroom unit, you could have a nanny's quarters so that when you came here, because so many of these buyers, these are not homestead people and these are
Yep.
not even owner investors. These are, I come to Miami once every 8 weeks to go shopping for a week because that was a buyer. That was a type of buyer. I bring my family to Miami every couple months. We're gonna go to Dadeland. I'm going to go to every restaurant I want to go to, and we travel with our help. And that was the product that was built for that buyer. Those buyers are not coming here anymore. So developers aren't building product for that anymore. They're putting in 30 years ago, the whole concept of the cold plunge didn't exist. If you go to any building, you want to age a building in Miami today, see if it has a racquetball court.
There you go.
See if it has a
Yep.
racquetball or a squash court.
Yes.
I guess the new amenity, the equivalent of that today would be a pickleball court or maybe like a paddle court. But it's funny because these are slices of history that it's a piece of hardware that they built. So unless they pave it over with something else, they put another pool, they turn it into a basketball court. It's sort of a peek. It's like reading the rings of a tree. You can sort of take a
True.
peek on what the monoculture of that day was. So if Grove Isle was in any apartments along Old Brickell, you got Santa Maria and the Atlantis. I'm pretty sure all of those have squash and racquetball courts. Asia, which was built not even that long ago. Asia was completed what in 2008. I think they
Yep.
have racquetball courts. So it's just interesting. So what will developers who are designing these buildings now, what are they doing to replace some of these things? You got the cold plunges, you have a cinema you throw in there, co-working spaces I'm seeing a lot of. So if you work from home and you got to get out of your 1,100 square foot condo, um, one of our loyal viewers is asking me to give a shout out to Carbonell, which is the second newest building in Brickell Key, which I
I
think
I like Carbonell. I
I
think
like
Carbonell's the
Carbonell.
best building on the island on
You
Brickell
like
Key,
Carbonell better
personally.
than Asia? I'm an Asia guy.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I like Carbonell. I like Carbonell. I like everything about it. Yeah, yeah. No,
The
Carbonell to me is the best
pool,
one on the
the
on the
pool at
island.
Carbonell is really cool because it's basically on the river. So you can have the best people watching you'll ever get, maybe outside of Lincoln Road when you got, the 6 foot tall ladies walking by. But you see all the charter rental boats and you can just sit there at that infinity pool and have a beer or 12.
Yeah, but not at $9 or $10 a beer. You can't.
No, you bring your own beer. You live there. It's your home.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Can New Yorkers replace the foreign buyer? I think
Well,
yeah.
I think they have. The real question that the journalists who wrote the story that got you interested in this should have been asking is, will foreign buyers step in and take out New York buyers? And that's the question going forward.
I don't think they'll be able to afford it at these prices. And I think that's part of the decline that we've seen. Remember, it's very easy to point fingers and let's not get political about this, but this decline isn't a recent phenomenon. And once the new numbers come out, I bet you it will be far less than the 10% it was in 2024. But this decline that we've been seeing is something that's been going on for 6 years. So without Orange Face, without any of these crazy laws and Alligator Alcatraz, this has been going on for years. And I think a big part of it is just the sheer cost.
The cost. I mean, the dollar was extremely strong. Now it's pulling back. Last time I looked, it was down over 10% since January. So it should make it interesting, but then you get into a situation like, if I show up here, am I going to go out to Alligator Alcatraz and get one meal a day? You see what I'm saying? I mean, that's an extreme, but the mentality. I mean, you're hearing concerns about the upcoming World Cup. What is the crowd going to be like? Our country's going to protest and their fans not show up here. Now, keep in mind, 54% of Miami-Dade County is foreign born. This cultural affinity, I buy a place, I invite some friends, they come, they like it, they buy, their friends, so on and so on.
Yeah, it's suddenly cut that off. It's like what's happening with the Russians in Dubai. If you talk to any sales rep in Dubai, they're selling to Russians. So New Yorkers can replace foreign buyers. They are. I hope they continue to, because it's the business that we're in. And
I say it's a sell. I don't think they're going to have the bet. I don't think the New Yorker. I don't think replace. I think they've already replaced them.
Well, I think that's already over. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Did it happen? 100%. I used to see New York Giants hats. I used to see New York Jets hats. I only see the Jets hats now. I don't see the Giants hats anymore. Just as like anecdote.
Well, because all the foreign buyers were Giants fans. And then we kind of looped that in with Miami Beach booming, but I do want to save that for another week, because I think there's a lot more to unpack there. I think it's a hold. Is Miami Beach booming? We do see a lot of these offices being built. We do see the $10-20 million transactions, and these are high finance executives and tech executives buying a lot of these. But what I do want to see is fully leased office buildings. And once you see some of these trading houses and these financial institutions signing long-term leases in these offices, that they're kind of here to stay. I mean, you're going to be signing a 5, 7, 10-year lease. You have to hire and bring in jobs. Are you going to be importing that talent? Are you going to be hiring locally? God, I hope you're hiring locally. But I'm holding on Miami Beach booming.
Well, I 2 points. I had a conversation today with a friend who does medical office space. He's a leasing agent or sales agent for medical office space, and he's searching around basically south of, I don't know what you want to call it, south of maybe a tropical park. Which would be like Bird Road or something.
Yeah,
so like 40th.
Westchester.
Yeah. South of there, there was like one property available. So medical office space is booming. The problem is you don't have any quantity. Nothing on the market. I was at an event last week with an analyst from, I think, CBRE. She studies the office space market. And I was asking her, I said, what's going on with the office space market? Because, I didn't think anybody's going back in the office. And then Stephen Ross cancels One Brickell City Center.
There's not enough. Now there's a supply chokehold. All these guys want to come down here, but they want sexy Class A office space. They can pay for sexy Class A office space.
Well, and that's what she said. She said Class A all day long.
Yeah.
She said Class B, C, and D. You can't give that stuff away.
No,
Nobody
because
wants
those guys are working from home.
Correct. So, but this, just a little tidbit. I don't know if you saw it, but Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, he's talking about, yeah, exactly.
You're talking about the data center?
The data center size of Manhattan. And then it evolved where some people are pitching the idea that you're going to take some of this Class B and C office space and you're going to turn it into these data centers, because nobody's going to occupy it. Doesn't take anything to build out other than air conditioning, maybe electrical.
We're going to rezone it and turn it into condos, terminate it. That's the Miami way.
Put it up.
We're not going to put a data center on South Bayshore Drive, but we will terminate that building. Or I won't personally do it, but Peter and I will certainly talk about it when we find out that you did it. So are you booming on Miami Beach?
I'm a hold on Miami Beach. I don't like the long term. I mean, I like the prospects because I think it's going to get hit. I like the long term. I think right now though, I'm a hold personally.
I'm holding, but I do want to put an asterisk on, and this is something that we bring up a lot. It's really difficult, or I think it's wrong to generalize in general, not to be redundant, but you can't just talk about the Miami market. You can't say the Miami market. It's so many different markets. There's, as you said, the Class A office space. You talk to the CBRE analyst. Class A office space. These guys can't lease this stuff fast enough.
Yep, that's what she said.
Because Mr. Zalewski just bought a $20 million house on, this is your cousin, not you. Mr. Zalewski just got a $20 million house in Coconut Grove. Well, maybe he doesn't want to work from his 10,000 square foot place on the water. Or maybe if it's only $20 million, it's probably just a 5,000 square foot place on the water. But he doesn't want to work from home. And so he has, and there's this new phenomenon, everybody's got a family office. But back in the day, and there used to be a threshold, like a hard number for this. To have a family office, you had to have X number of dollars. And it was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. You had to be very, very wealthy. But the amount of wealth that has been created in the past decade, and particularly the past half decade, now it's become sort of like a coat of arms, a rite of passage. I have a family office. I am a check me off as a wealthy guy, and that number isn't necessarily hundreds of millions of dollars. You could have a family office with $60 million. All that means is that you have somebody working for you full time, be as a financial analyst or a property manager or an asset manager. And
they also might be driving a car. They could be running.
Whatever. Yeah, my chauffeur, he works for my family office. Which I talk to wealth managers about this, and they kind of roll their eyes, like, yeah, it kind of cheapens the whole thing. Like, nah, you're wealthy. I mean, generational wealth, but not like Bezos-y.
Yeah.
So just I thought that was interesting. So these guys, they want to open office space, but they're not Apple. They don't need 20,000 square feet of office space. They're not Facebook. They don't need 30,000 square feet. They don't need data centers. They want a very nice, very expensive, because they want to be able to show all their friends, 3,000 to 5,000 square foot office space where they can put 10 employees. And that's a product that nobody was building for prior to COVID. They were building for institutional, corporate offices, and now, because of the growing number of family offices, now it's like, well, why aren't we chopping up this Class A office building into 50 little 3,000 square foot offices instead of 10? And they're getting exorbitant rents for that, and I think that's why we see high-end office space. There's one on Miami Beach, the Fifth. So they're in the bottom. In retail, they're always putting a super fancy schmancy restaurant on Purdy Avenue, right next to the old Purdy Lounge, closer to the Venetian Causeway. I forget what the building name is, 1800 Sunset or 1800 Harbor, but it's in Sunset Harbor. And a hedge fund went in there and leased up half the building. I think more than half the building. And that was just one tenant, but it's a boutique hedge fund that you've never heard of before. And so we're seeing that over and over and over again. These aren't folks who necessarily even want to be in the news. Most of these organizations don't want the world to know they exist because they're up to all no good stuff. I'm not saying they're up to no good stuff, but you know what I mean. They're like commodities traders. Nobody wants to know what their secret sauce is. They don't want anybody to know what their secret sauce is. So we're holding on Miami Beach booming. And to wrap us up for today, and she's been in the paper because I actually subscribe to the Miami Herald. I get it, and it's exorbitantly expensive. Every time they try to raise the price on me, I tell them I'm going to cancel, and they give me like $5 off. But in any event, for the last 2 days, Mayor of Miami-Dade County, Danielle Levine Cava, has been talking about, or the Herald's been reporting on, the budget deficit going on in Dade County. And Peter, you had me tack this on to the end of our rundown because you seem pretty riled up. There seems like there's something you want to get off your chest here. Tell me about it.
You know me, I'm kind of soft-spoken. I don't necessarily bring up a lot of things. So I heard an interview this afternoon, something called South Florida Roundup. It's a weekly show every Friday
On
at one
NPR.
o'clock. They play it on WLRN, which by the way they just all lost their funding. I guess after this week, so we'll have to see how that kind of shakes out. But I heard an interview with the mayor, Daniela Levine Cava, and there's actually an article. So if I could just hit a couple key points because I'm not really a political junkie, but so this come from WLRN. The headline is Miami-Dade Mayor Levine Cava seeks to close $402 million revenue gap with her proposed budget. So the mayor of Miami-Dade County, and ultimately the budget has to be signed off on by all of the county commissioners. She's trying to make up for a lack of cash coming in, and one of the ways she's going to do it is, and this is close to me, there's a 50% hike on your Metro Rail fare. Now, first time they've done it in 10 years, it's not a big deal. Percentage wise, it's about 22% or so. So I pay $225 right now when I go to the office because I don't have a car. I don't necessarily want a car. I don't want the cost associated with the car. I don't want to pay the insurance. So I take the Metro Rail to my office and, it's going to be 275. Again, not a big deal. What could be a big deal though is that we're seeing about 350 employees are going to be cut from Miami-Dade County. A lot of people get their jobs with the county. Maybe they do it. Some of them are going in there because they got a hookup and they don't necessarily want to do anything. They want the perks, all this type of stuff. But some of them do it because they want to serve the greater good or so. So you're talking about 350 employees that are going to get blown out. They're going to get taken out at a time when you got all the federal employees that got blown out as a result of Doge. So we have this going on, and one of the things the mayor said during her interview is the reason we don't have enough cash is there is some restructuring based on a referendum that occurred, and they're splitting
we
divisions.
gave $50 million to FIFA.
Yeah, well, and we got to give 50 million to FIFA. But the other part that sort of caught my attention is we have a $402 million shortfall, but she refuses to raise property taxes on these people who have the homes. Why not raise everybody's property tax? And what I mean by that is raise the millage, increase the millage. So whatever your value is, you're going to be taxed about slightly more. No, they don't want to do that. Instead, they want to take it from everybody else. And I realize why you don't do that. You don't do that because of voters. I totally get it, totally get it. But here's the part that concerns me, and this part that got me fired up. This came out, or this interview was shortly after there was reports saying that a Wall Street firm just did an analysis as a result of the Big Beautiful Bill, not talk politics, but as a result of the Big Beautiful Bill, the people in Obamacare are looking at a 75% increase in their insurance.
Whoa.
A lot of people in the real estate industry are independent. And as a result of that, they go through Obamacare simply because it's a way to choose insurance instead of calling around, whatever. You can kind of get it. It's kind of like a database. It's like ordering, like on Amazon. Yeah, 75% increase across the board on Obamacare based on a Wall Street analyst prediction, because they're talking about forecasting out for healthcare. So we got a 75% increase if you assume the analyst is correct on your Obamacare, if you're in the real estate industry or you're an independent contractor or anything like that. Same time, we got this $400 million shortfall. Things are going to be going up, services are going to be cut. And then you throw in the fact that we have this Liberation Day tariff plan, which is generating a lot of cash because people are having to pay more. It's starting to finally kick in. We saw with the latest inflation numbers, they went from about 2.4 to suddenly 2.7. So we did have an uptick, and a lot of it, the analysts are saying, is as a result of the Liberation Day tariffs. So I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know if we know this, but from everything I'm gathering is we're kind of the frog in the pot and the water's boiling or it's getting heated up. And I think what they're afraid to tell us is we're in the midst of an austerity program. An austerity program, I'm not going to say it's going to be as crazy. Remember Greece, Daniel? Remember Greece, the IMF?
Greece.
IMF had International Monetary Fund had to come in and bail them out. They, in order to get the money for the loan, they had to cut all kind of services, and everybody went batshit. They went and they protested, broke windows, did this and that. I'm wondering if we're not almost in the midst of some sort of slow boil austerity program, because obviously we have a huge deficit and it's gotten bigger because of the Big Beautiful Bill and all the additional tax breaks that are going towards these billionaires. But at some point you sort of have to ask yourself, are we going through an austerity program? The mayor's doing whatever she can to kind of make it happen. We'll see what the county commission does. But if you look at all of the winds that are blowing, and then you throw in the fact some of these prices we were talking about, Central Business District, average ask is 1.6 a door for a condo. You can get $3,500 a month in rent. If you're somebody who's sitting in one of those or you own one of those and you're just hearing about all the, everybody's getting their money sucked out in a variety of different ways. Eggs have come down, fair enough, but have you seen coffee? If you've seen coffee prices, how high that
What
is.
about your cream cheese, Peter?
What about the cream cheese? Yeah, cream cheese at Target. Cream cheese is always a good tell. Philadelphia cream cheese was always about $2 a stick. You get the generic off-brand $1.50 a stick. Then it went to 3. Then at one point it was like 4 something. Now I'm seeing a pair of them. And what they do is they make you buy more, kind of like a Costco. You buy more, they can blend it out and rationalize. But you're still talking $5.50 for a pair of them. So it's still in my opinion, way too high. So I guess the point I wanted to bring up with this is that this is a budget that proposed by the mayor. It'll be voted upon. It'll go into effect October 1st. The Wall Street analyst says the Obamacare, so anybody who's tapping into that or maybe using the healthcare, not for a subsidy, but to identify insurance instead of going through a broker or whatever, they're going to probably see a 75% increase in healthcare insurance January 1st. Why? Because many people who are healthy are going to simply fall out. They're like, dude, I'm not going to pay this. So therefore, the insurance company has to kind of figure out what they're going to do because the only people they got insured who are going to be sick, which is going to blow out the entire blend. So we have all these steps that are slowly starting to kick in. And at the same time, we have concerns about alligator Alcatraz. We have concerns about what's the winter going to be like? Are people going to come and visit? I'm not trying to be Chicken Little, but I'm saying there's a bunch of different warning signs that are out there.
Where are they putting the incinerator? And what about this is quasi related, but it has to do with the county. You're talking about Ms. Cava, Ms. Levine Cava.
Yep.
Did you see the announcement that they made about the Miami International Airport?
Oh, about $9 billion redo or something?
No. It's going to be renovated, completed by I think they said the end of 2028, and I almost spit out my milk. I don't even drink milk, but I spit out milk when I read that. It came through my nose. It was 2028. We have it. The trains, if you've been to Miami International Airport, anyone, or if you've gone through the American Airlines terminal, because they have a monopoly there in Miami International Airport. It's 60 gates long. It's about a mile, probably a little more. So if you're hard to walk, it's perilous because the train was broken for, gosh, I don't know how many months, maybe a year. And then they had this whole big hoopla. We fixed the train, except for this one. So there's 4 stops. They fixed 3. So they fixed 75% of it, and they declared it fixed. None of the
escalators are always broken.
Yeah,
whenever you're going on one of the trains,
the people movers,
you always got to take the stairs and the elevators.
Those conveyor belt things that just are supposed to allow you to more easily traverse these extra super long hallways. Like if you ever fly internationally, you got to walk on top of everyone. So if they can't get the trains and the escalator, of all the complex construction that will be required to build new terminals, and they're telling us that's going to be done when they can't get somebody to fix an escalator? I mean, I don't buy that for a freaking second. I mean, do they think we're dumb?
Dude, I think it's a cash flow issue. I think we're seriously, I wanted to bring up this story because I think it's a tell. I think if you own property, you need to be aware of what's coming. And I think if you're a buyer, this is going to be a golden opportunity. This is going to be a golden opportunity because I think you are going to have people who are going to get squeezed out. They're going to get squeezed out for a variety of different reasons. All the money's getting sucked out of them. So I think there will be a great buying opportunity coming of this, but I think there's going to be some real pain kind of associated with it. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up because it's like it's just everything starting to pop.
Ominous.
Everything's starting in the fall into place.
It's
from my perspective, I work on the buy side and I love a distressed market. So on my side, I'm very bullish, but the compassionate side suggests that we could be in for some real sort of pain. And if anybody is thinking about selling, my suggestion is you should have done it before, but or you need to do something, but you need to be prepared because as that landscaping bill goes up, if you're in a house, as the maintenance fees go up, as you have to do this, people are going to really kind of feel the pressure, and then they're going to go into almost whether we go into one or not, a recession type of mentality where nobody wants to burn any cash. And that's where then you get restaurants closing, you get this, you get that. So we're in a real, this is one of those moments where it could go one way or another. And as people start to feel it, I think buyers will have tremendous opportunities. I think if you're a seller, you're probably not going to be sleeping well going forward when everything starts piling on, 75% increase, you got lack of services, and then who knows what's going to happen with insurance? Who knows what will happen with the hurricane season? So, I'm just saying there's a lot of
refi into a 40-year mortgage to bring the payment down.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I don't think we're too far away from seeing the 40-year mortgage. I think that's where we're at.
I think we're going to have to, man. I mean, this is going to be just like during the Great Recession. Remember, they changed the FDIC insurance amount. They had to raise it because of
To
whatever
250,
reason.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're going to have a something is going to change this go around because there's too many cross currents, and
Well,
maybe we go to a
we've
40-year.
spoken about this in the past.
Maybe we go to a 40-year mortgage.
all
But
of
but
these
but I wanted to
federal
alert. I just wanted to alert anybody watching that understand that we're at one of those moments where shit's gonna go down one way or another. And by the way, let's see if Ken Griffin puts up his $1 billion office tower.
we didn't talk about it this week in detail, but we will have an update for all of our loyal viewers. Thank you, Mr. Alvarez.
But let me ask you though: are you a buy, a sell, or a hold on austerity measures being felt in Miami-Dade County and the United States
I
as we go into
buy
next
the
year?
fact that they will be felt. You can't sweep a $402 million deficit under the rug. What are they going to do about it? The article alluded to them cutting property taxes in the state of Wyoming, which has like, I don't know, mid 6-figure population. Florida has
Yep.
20 something million people. You can't just cut property taxes without having a plan in place as to, well, what's going to fund the shortfall. They talked about doubling sales tax to 12%, but you're not an electable candidate if you're going to be doubling sales tax in your district. So I don't think it's entirely popular. Yes, would it be nice to pay less property tax? Yes, I own property, but also I appreciate that we need city services. I need the city to work. I need the county to work. I need it when, God forbid, I have to call 911 that somebody shows up, right? Schools, even though nobody wants to go to public schools, a lot of people do go to public schools. You need the public schools. Doral or Miramar, wherever they're going to put this incinerator, they got to build it. We need airports. There's so much that the county needs to do, and I wish they would just do it instead of releasing press releases.
No, I'm with you, Daniel. But what I will tell you though is when I heard Daniela Levine Cava today, the mayor, say in a broadcast that less tax money is coming in because of a decrease in valuations based on Tomas Regalado, the property tax or the property appraiser.
I don't buy it. I don't buy that for a second.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is the last time I heard this was Great Recession days when they were trying to put up a stadium for the Miami Marlins, and the city of Miami had junk bond status for its credit rating. No, seriously, because again, 2% of your property tax, a third to school, a third to county, a third to city. If the county's feeling it, that means the cities and the schools are going to be feeling it. So this is going to be a pile-on type of scenario. And the question is, has that pullback in the valuations that Tomas Regalado, the property appraiser, that he's coming up with, is this the beginning? Because remember, it all kind of moves in phases. It swings. It's like a pendulum. And if that's the case, then that means you got even more cuts going forward because that's how they fill their coffers.
I think so, especially with the amount of people taking advantage of this school voucher program. You're just seeing less funding in schools, and I think it's an omen. I think it's an ominous sign for her to come out and say that. Was it the right thing to do? Yeah, I love transparency.
It stopped me. It's when I heard that, it like completely stopped me because I'm telling you, I have not heard that in 15, 16 years.
Your ears perked up?
Yeah. When the mayor of Miami-Dade County was the weightlifter, remember the bodybuilder? He had all the, he was the former police chief and then became the mayor and he was a bodybuilder. He did it on the side. Do you remember that?
No.
Oh, no, dude, you got to look it up. The mayor of Miami-Dade County at the time when the Marlins Stadium was pushed forward because Jeffrey Loria, the owner at the time, was threatening to move to San Antonio. So they said, oh, dude, let's go ahead and let's build a stadium. It's going to cost north of $1 billion because of the credit rating. Yeah, when they did that. Yeah. But I haven't heard it since that time.
Carlos Alvarez? No.
Yeah, Carlos Alvarez.
It was Carlos Alvarez?
Yeah.
No freaking way. Hold on. I got to pull this up for the gang.
He's a bodybuilder. He was a professional bodybuilder or he competed. He was a police chief and then became the county mayor. And he's the one who signed off on the Marlins Stadium. There you go.
This guy. Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
He's a fit dude.
Yeah, no. Oh, listen, I wouldn't talk shit to him. Not to his face.
All right, so you asked me Miami-Dade County austerity. Let me get this guy's image off of my screen. Miami-Dade County austerity measures. Look, I'm buying it because that's what's going to happen. Am I happy about it? No. But
Are we going to be Greece?
No, I don't think we're going to be Greece. We actually export one thing and we do it well, and that's condos. And people will continue to buy them. And I hope that they continue to buy them. And guys, everybody watching, Peter's not wrong. When all these buildings in World Center start delivering and these folks realize that they're not making money on them, I think
4,800 units.
I think what's going to happen is a lot of these short-term rental buildings, once they deliver, a board's going to get control and cut that short-term rental crap out of it. Otherwise, nobody's going to be able to transact in those buildings. And then they'll enter the gen pop of the condominium market, and we'll be able to transact, albeit people are going to lose their ass on these pre-construction prices. Because I mean, at $900 a square foot for a studio, come on.
Well, yeah, but that's the deal. That's the Adam Newman deal on Flowhouse.
That's the okay. So
everybody else is 1,200 starting.
1,200 for a 400 square foot studio. Come on.
So, but already you see there, he's saying, okay, well, this is the market. Let me go ahead and try to undercut it already because I need to generate, just like you do a happy hour at a restaurant when you need cash flow.
Speaking of happy hour, I got one to get to. Peter, you buying, selling, or holding?
Austerity, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think it gets as bad as Greece, but I don't think the country and the community recognizes what we're about to go through, and that's why I say,
guys, we're putting a buy and it's green, but it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. Listen, everybody. My name is Daniel Hernandez. If you're watching on the social media, I'm freaking old, right?
Like
Peter. If you're watching
Facebook.
on vertical video, Peter's on top of me. If you're watching on YouTube, he's to my left. Thank you so much. My name is Daniel Hernandez. I'm a realtor with Compass. Peter Zalewski. He is the founder of the Miami Condo Club. And we hope to see you all next Friday at 4 o'clock on YouTube and Substack.